At dawn the river air pressed into the high windows of Maegor's Holdfast and crept across the tiles like breath, warm already, heavy with tar and salt and the faint metal tang of forges waking down by the street of steel. The king slept through it. He slept on his stomach as if pinning the bed beneath him were some victory, arm flung over the edge, the gold and onyx crown set on the table beside him without ceremony. He had not bothered with the stand. He never did when he remembered to remove it at all. The crown lay there like a petulant child sulking in light that had not yet become day, its inlaid stag catching the first pale smear of the sun. When Robert Baratheon woke, he woke to thirst first, then to a steady old ache in his knees that no maester's paste would salve, not completely. He lay still and took stock. The castle breathed. A gull scolded from the sea. A man-at-arms coughed in the corridor beyond the chamber door. The weight between his eyes told of last night's wine. The weight just behind his ribs told of something else. He let that one remain unnamed for a moment longer, and turned onto his side, and saw the book. It had not been there when he tumbled in and kicked off his boots with the impatience of a man who has never learned to be patient with anything, least of all with himself. It lay open now, the leather broken at the hinge, its pages like thin bone. A candle had burned out beside it, leaving a puddle of cooled wax on the wood. He heard again the soft errand of a servant, the scrape of the table, the whisper of paper. Someone, no, not someone, Eddard, had sent it up after Robert stumbled from the council chamber and forgot it. The king had not forgotten the book since the night a dying man breathed his last beneath it. But he had forgotten everything last night. He rolled to sitting, bare feet on cold tile, and drew the book closer with the back of his knuckles. His own name was not there. Names upon names were there, spooling in a script that might have been a web spun by some industrious little spider of a monk. Houses of the realm, their marriages and their issues and their hair. Hair of jet and hair of sand and hair of shining noon. Eyes the color of new leaves or of storm. Patterns traceable like the track of a storm across fields of wheat if a man were patient, if he cared to follow such things. Robert had never been patient, but he could follow a storm. He had sat with Jon Arryn over this book, the two of them unceremoniously hunched in a room that looked out over the rain-swept city while stormlight made the pages seem lit from within. The hand had tapped the parchment, following the line of an argument as if it were a march north along a tree line, and the king had said, gruff and disinterested, "You've gone to fat, old friend. One of these days I'll have to carry you from this table." He should not have said it. No one was carrying Jon Arryn anywhere now. He had been carried once, and that had been to the vault of the Silent Sisters. Robert let the ache behind his ribs name itself. It had no poetry in it. He picked up the book and turned a page carefully, thumb ungentle even when he meant it to be, and there it was again, in a note Jon Arryn had made decades before in the narrow hand that never changed. The thing the old man had believed worthy of ink more than once. A line of the Baratheons, thick with dark hair, and a litany of their children with this lady or that maid, and all the same dark as pitch save for one or two who took to brown. A thing one could say with confidence because here it lay tabulated like coin. He had a dim memory of a maester attempting to explain how features pass from father to child, like a stubborn tune heard by the same ear and hummed again years later without knowing why. He had not listened. He listened now. With his heel, he nudged a pair of boots into place and lowered his feet into them without bothering to pull on hose. He stood, the old aches complaining, and crossed to the wash basin. A jug of yesterday's water sat beside it. Fine silt settled on the bottom. He drank from the jug like a carter, wiped his mouth on the back of his hand like a boy, and looked back at the book, at the neat crabbed note that had nothing to do with wars or boars or cups of wine. It spoke of inescapable patterns that no war could batter down. Over and over, that quiet line, black to black, golden to golden. The page had a list of bastards, too, where some diligent soul had counted them, the kind of counting that made a hand old in the bones. Bastards Robert had forgotten and those he recalled, and one or two he refused to remember. Their hair crowded the margin as surely as their names crowded the city. Black hair everywhere. Joffrey's hair was sunlight in a cup. He stood very still. The gull scolded again, more insistent now, as if impatient with a king who could not recognize daylight. Robert set the jug down and took the crown in both hands. He placed it upon his head not out of piety or theater, but because the weight was real and real weights steadied him. Then he crossed the room, and he gathered up the book, and he left without calling for servants or for his sons or his wife or anyone. The corridor beyond his door had the crispness of early day. Torches burned low, a chill still fighting a losing fight against the day's baked breath. He walked not quickly but with the measured stride of a man who knows where he is going and that he has time to get there. In truth, he did not know where he was going until he turned left instead of right and found himself walking toward the small door that led to the covered stair to the Godswood. The Godswood of the Red Keep was starved of room and of earth. It had a pool in it and a stand of dark-leaf trees that had learned to live with thin soil and the insults of palace walls. There was no weirwood. There might have been one once. He knew better than to ask Ned if he mower. Ned the absence. The Northern Lord did not wear his griefs like jewels as some men did. He kept them in dark pockets where his hands went without conscious thought. When Robert stepped into the shade, the city's noise softened and a sudden smell of damp stone replaced the forge and brine. Eddard Stark was already there, boots dark with dew, hair unbound, the great sword that was not meant for palace work leaning against a bench as if it were a staff to walk with and not a thing that could make a man into two pieces. He was looking at the pool with the seriousness other men give a ledger. "The book," Ned said without preface, when he turned and saw the king with it. His voice put no question at the end, but one was in it nonetheless. "The book," Robert answered. "You sent it up to me like a nurse, I suppose, fearing I would roll over on it and smother myself." Ned's face gave no smile to that. He reached for the book and Robert did not hand it to him. Ned's hand paused in air, then fell back to his side. "I read it," Robert said. "Not all. Enough." He folded the book against his palm and used it to tap his own crown lightly. Enough to put a hammer in the head and pound until something shakes loose. Eddard Stark stepped closer, his gray eyes steady. "Jon Arryn thought it important. I told you that." "You did." Robert shoved a hand through his hair and felt the stubble of his scalp beneath. "I did not listen. I have not listened to wiser men than you. That has been the way of the world all my life." He considered the water, the quiver of a thin insect walking across its skin as if across glass. "In this book of yours, there are many names. None of them are Joffrey Baratheon." He had not meant to say it so plainly. It leapt out of him like a boar breaking the brush notwithstanding the hunter's plan. Eddard did not flinch. His jaw set, which might be his version of flinching. He had never learned a courtier's false faces and never would. "It is a dangerous thing," Ned said. To answer that thought aloud, Robert made a gesture with the book. "Dangerous because it is true? Dangerous because of who is named if you say that one is not," Ned said. "The mother." Robert felt his mouth twist. He forced it straight. "The mother I took for a queen. The mother who gave me 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Had I been a better husband, I might have thought the gods owed me 3 with black hair." "You have black-haired sons in the city already," Ned said quietly. Robert looked at him, sudden heat rising. For a breath the words tasted of accusation when they were nothing of the sort. They were, if anything, a lifeline thrown in a sea. He took the line. "I will see one of them," Robert said. "Today. One you think will not be turned out like a dog or hidden like a coin, if the city catches the scent. And I will look at him, Ned. And then I will look at the boy they call my heir." He closed the book and felt the leather catch against his palm. "I will not say more before I do that, else I will say too much." Eddard Stark considered the pool a moment more, as if the answer might rise from it like a fish too trusting of breadcrumbs. Then he took up his sword as a man takes up a duty, no flourish, and he said, "Wear a plain cloak." They went out by a small door and down a narrow stair that smelled of the damp breath of the cliff and then of the latrines, and then they were in the maze of the kitchens where the fires were being coaxed from last night's ash. The king and the hand walked through as if they were 2 captain's guardsmen talking of weather, their cloaks common dyed wool and their blades unremarkable. A cook's boy swore at a spilled bucket and the king did not turn his head. In the yard beyond, the air hit them again, heat and tar and metal, and by the time they reached the outer postern, the city had fully woken. It was an ugly city. Robert thought with the affection a man sometimes feels for an ugly old dog that has never been anything but faithful to its own ugly nature. It sprawled and stank and worked. He had seen too many pretty places that were only that. The street of steel was already a river of hammers when they reached it, the sound of blows so regular it might have been the beating of some enormous heart. Smoke rose in blue sheets. Gouts of spark spilled from an open mouth of a forge and were swept away by the wind as if by a careless god's hand. They did not go to an alley where a boy might shape nails or mend a bent hinge. Ned had the direction well in mind and had thought about the time of day, and soon they were at a door that had seen some care, with metalwork on it that was not for show but nevertheless showed something. A journeyman would have put iron bars plain. Here the iron bars were bent into a pattern that suggested leaves. Robert felt the smallest tug of admiration. He had always loved things built to last. Within it smelled of oil and of steel brought close to orange. A man as wide as a bear with a beard like iron filings looked up, saw the two cloaked figures, and did not bother to shout through apprentices and boys. He walked to them, wiping his hands on a rag that had begun life as some lordling's shirt. "My lord," he said to Ned. He did not look at the king, and that pleased Robert more than it should have. "You've come for the boy." "I've come," Ned said, "for my king." The smith's eyes flicked then, and for the space of a heartbeat Robert saw the man's quick assessment. Shoes not fine, cloak not fine, shoulders too big to be a clerk. Look in the eyes, too direct to be a man used to flattery. Then the giant bowed his head without lowering his back. "As you will," he said. "He's at the bench. He'll not lift his head if I say his name. He thinks to hide from me in his work. A fool, but of an honest kind." "Leave us a moment," Ned said. The bear of a man whistled sharply, and a scatter of boys took that as permission to disappear. The king. And the hand stepped deeper into the heat. Robert found himself wishing for wine that would go down like cool rain. He corrected the wish to water. He, who had sworn on more mornings than he could count that he would drink no wine before the sun was high, swore it now with a conviction that surprised him. There was work to do. He did not trust himself to do it with the old sweet dullness in him. The boy did not look up. He was tall already and not soft anywhere, as if the forge had eaten any softness he might have brought to it from his mother. He struck the metal as if knocking on a door only he could hear, precise. Robert waited. The boy glanced at Ned with the courtesy of a glance to an older man, then gave the stranger the traveling glance one gives to someone who comes with an older man. Robert stood where he was. "How old are you?" he asked, because he did not trust any more elegant beginning. He heard his own voice and how it sat in the air, too full, too used to command. He was angry with it and could not help it. The boy paused, looked up properly this time, and frowned. He had a wide brow and a mouth that might be mild or might not. He set the hammer down with care. "I was told," he said, with the straightforwardness of boys who have never learned yet to dress their words in anything but the truth, "that if a lord asked me a question I was to answer short and honest and then keep my head down. I am 12. 13 in winter," the smith said from somewhere beyond. It had not been agreement so much as a correction, reflexive, proud. 12, the boy said again, a little stubbornly, and Robert's heart, damn it, it had become a treacherous organ, kicked him. He kept his mask. "What is your name?" Ned asked gentler. "Gendry," said the boy. Robert nodded once and let the name go through him and into the earth beneath his boots. "Your mother," he said, and then the pit opened beneath his feet and he heard himself stop. He had never been one for careful sentences. "Your mother was..." He could picture a face. The faces had blurred over years into a composite that no amount of regret could separate into individuals. This one, he thought, had been dark-haired. Or had that been another? He hated himself for not knowing. "A tavern girl," the boy said. "She died when I was little. The master took me on when I was small enough to live under a table and fetch tongs as if I were a fire sprite." Ned's stillness was its own expression. Robert studied the boy. He did not count hairs. He did not toad up the features like a clerk. It was the shape of the boy's look when he thought no one saw him, the way his shoulders squared as he stood not to be taller but to be ready. He had seen himself in other men often enough, more than he had deserved to, and he had learned not to trust that rush of recognition. But this was stone and not water. The boy had his brow, and something about him wore that brow as if it were a burden he did not yet know how to carry. "Your mother had friends," Robert said. "She was taken to court once. Did you ever see a man there who might have looked like you?" It was a poor question. The boy frowned, as if he were being asked whether iron would prefer to be a plowshare or a sword. "She told me," he said. "I had a father who was a lord. That is what she said. That is what they all say. If he were a king, she would not have said it. She would have come here and knocked on your castle as if it were a forged door and told me to wait while you opened." He did not mean disrespect. He put his hand back on the hammer as if to say he had done as he was told in life and meant to continue. Robert nodded. He was not sure his head moved so much as gave the idea of movement. Ned said softly, "Show us what you're working on." Gendry lifted the bar and turned it and struck twice. The sound was clean, centered. Ned watched a craftsman. Robert, listening, thought of steel singing, and then of another singing. A song he had shouted on battlefields with men whose bones lay under soil now. He could see one of those men's faces as clearly as he could not see the tavern girls. He had been a good man. Black hair, all of them laughing in the rain. He reached into his cloak and took out a coin he carried for reasons like this, which had nothing to do with paying for anything. He set it on the bench. "For the master." He took out a second and set it beside the first. "For you, if you do as this man tells you for a while longer. He will tell you to keep your head down, and you will. He will send you to mend hooves and to make hinges, and you will do it. Do not leave this street unless he sends you." Gendry considered the 2 coins. There was no gleam in his expression at the shine of them. He put one finger on the coin meant for his master, moved it a little to make the light find it again, then let go. "I do as I'm told," he said. "I have always done as I've been told. It is the one thing I am sure I know how to do." Robert could not stay any longer. He turned, and he walked out into the heat, and Ned came with him, and the hammer-struck heart of the street went on beating behind them, untroubled by kings or their secrets. On the walk back, Robert did not speak. He had been built for shouting and for hearty laughter and for the kind of silence that comes at the end of a song when men are too full of it to say anything and therefore pour another cup. This was not that kind of silence. It made a place inside him that had not been there before. The book pressed against his side like a sword, like something that cut simply by being. At the postern, Eddard broke the hush. "We should not walk into the lion's den before we have thought about which bars to shut behind us." Robert snorted in something like agreement that did not yet trust itself to be that. "No," he said. "We will walk like men about the business of kings. We will hold a council. We will speak of ships as if ships matter. More to me than my own bed. And you will watch. You will see to whom the city is listening. You will tell me if it is me." Pause. "I will tell you whether it is you," Ned said. Back in the corridors again, the king went another way, leaving Ned, leaving the book behind with him, leaving even his own chambers. He did not trust himself to pace there like a bull whose handler had let the rope slacken. He took instead the narrow stair up into air and light, to the highest walk of the inner ward where guards stood with their eyes burning at the horizon. He looked where they looked. The sea lay spread like beaten metal. Ships moved there, some fat with trade and some lean with teeth. He stood until sweat made the linen under his cloak cling to him. He stood until a young king's guard coughed into his glove behind him, the permitted small sound that meant a supplicant waited below. He turned and went down, the crown still on his head, and made for the small council chamber. They rose when he entered. The length of the table was a little thing and yet a world. Varys, neat and smooth and soft. Peter Baelish smiling, as if someone had told him a whisper that was both funny and cruel. Renly, green and golden and wide of shoulder, his hair as dark as his brother's. gods, would that Renly had half the years and twice the patience. Pycelle ancient and gray and scented. Barristan Selmy standing to the left as if his spine had been forged. And one other white cloak with his elbow hiked upon his knee and his gold head bent as if to keep a secret. Jaime Lannister's smile when he rose was a coin thrown in the air, catching light and falling who knew how. "Sit," Robert said. He put both hands flat on the table, palms down, a man feeling whether the wood was solid. He looked at the plate beside Renly's elbow, a fig half-eaten, its heart glistening, and felt a burst of dislike that surprised him by its heat. He had no business with figs. He had business with ships, so he took it. Stannis was not there. Stannis had absented himself to Dragonstone 2 years before with a sulk and a wound that Robert had half understood and half refused to consider. You could not order a heart to be more generous by calling it a coward when it was only cautious. The chair felt like a missing tooth. They spoke of ships, trade, the raids along the western shore where the Ironborn had begun to remember that they had once been wolves to the rest of the realm's sheep. Of coin. Baelish made numbers sound like flirtations and Varys made wolves sound like rumor. Pycelle wheezed a thought about tariffs and choked on his own beard trying to make it sound new. Jaime said nothing. Jaime never said much in this room. He kept his counsel for when it would land like a knife between ribs. Renly spoke of festivals. He had a way of speaking of festivals that made you want to go of a piece with his smile. Robert agreed and disagreed and raised his voice twice. He did not look long at the white cloaks. He did not look at the Lord Commander except once, and then only to be strengthened by the line of Barristan's jaw. At the end he said, in a tone he had not used in years, "Send to Dragonstone. Tell my brother Stannis to attend me in my hall. He has sulked long enough. The storms do not excuse it." Renly had a thought ready. He always did. "Brother, send to Dragonstone," Robert said again. He met Renly's eyes and did not look away. He did not glare. He merely outlasted him. Renly's mouth softened into the smile he used when he conceded without surrendering his belief. He bowed his head. Varys's hands folded upon his belly as if in prayer. Peter Baelish, hands laced neat, leaned back and let his chair creak. "We will need 2 ravens," he murmured. "One for the Isle and one for the sea, in case one of them envies the other his flight." He was pleased with the turn of phrase. He always was. 3, Robert said, and turned his head calmly to the Kingsguard, to the gleam of a lion head under polished enamel. Jaime watched him as if the king were the most interesting swordsman in the yard. "1 to Storm's End, to Selwyn within the marches, and to my good cousins on Estermont. Tell them the king will be a poor host for hunting this week, and that they should not bring their cups to my table waiting to be filled." "That will disappoint a number of them," Jaime said mildly. "That will preserve a number of them from waking on the floor," Robert returned, and there was laughter, some of it real. He used it. "We will have no hunt this week. There is a boar on the King's Road that will live long enough without me, and there are other pigs that need sticking." Barristan's face did not change, which meant he approved. Varys's assent came in a minute dip of the chin. Peter's mouth made a shape that might have been a question mark, then smoothed out. Pycelle began to speak of a tincture that would do a world of good for a man's joints after a day in the saddle, and tapered off when he realized no one was listening. When he rose to leave, the queen was in the doorway. Cersei wore the cool green that made her hair burn brighter. The light caught her as if it had been seeking her and at last found the object it had been made for. Robert felt a rage so sudden and so complete that he thought someone had opened a door in his chest to let in the wind. He smiled. He had learned a lifetime ago that there is no better armor against a woman's sight than a smile that shows nothing beneath it but teeth. Cersei's eyes went to it and did not look away. "My lord," she said, and she dipped the smallest of dips. "You rose early to attend to matters of state. The city will sleep easier for it." Varys sounded pleased. Renly looked away so that he could laugh when he should not. Robert inclined his head an inch. "I rose early to remember I am a king," he said. "I had forgotten it recently." He let the word move to her and past her and over the shoulder where she knew her brother stood. He did not look at Jaime. He did not look at her hair. He paid for the control with breath and with years off his life he might want later. "Walk with me," he said to her. "A husband and wife may walk." She came at once, effortlessly. A queen who had no practice at waiting for any man's permission to move through the world. They took the eastern passage where the morning had climbed high enough to make the floor hot in bright coins. The small courtesies were said. She asked after his sleep. He asked after her prayer. They did not have the kind of marriage where either answer mattered. "I am told," she said, as if the matter had just come to her and she had reached for it in passing, "that your hand studies a dull book." "He studied many dull things," Robert said. "It is how men become worthy." He could not stop himself. "Others are born to it." She looked at him sidelong. "And some are merely born," she said, which was witty and not an answer. "I am told," she tried again, "that the Hands boys have been seen in the city near the forges, where they say bastards are coin." He stopped. He had not meant to. The stopping surprised him, and he let it. She stopped too, notable in itself. She had once been as impatient with pauses as he. "Do not say bastards to me as if it is a jest," he said quietly. She did not step back, but something in her balance altered. "Your boys," she said. Then she smiled the slow smile she used when she had judged a room's temperature correctly. "A man's boys. I did not mean to shame you. You failed in the attempt to mean it," he said. He heard his own voice at times like this and did not recognize it. Her face changed. Something thoughtful moved there like a fish just underwater. "You are in a mood to be contradicted," she said. "I take my leave of you, husband. I am sorry for whatever thing has made you wake like this." She touched the sleeve of his cloak with 2 fingers as if to make the sorrow material. Her rings cooled his skin through the wool. He watched her go. He thought he would be able to stop watching before she turned the corner. He was not. A short while later he found Baratheon Selmy in the yard where the squires brought men pretty little blunted swords and asked them to dance for the pleasure of those too young or too cruel to know what swords do when unblunted. Baratheon was speaking to a boy whose hair looked like winter wheat and whose wrist would never troop a troop well. He dismissed the boy and came with that quiet deference that never made Robert feel smaller unless he had done something to deserve to feel smaller. "Walk with me," Robert said again. It was a day for walking. They took the shade of a gallery where vines had been encouraged to twine up pillars, as if the palace had cultivated the idea of gardens when it could not give itself space for a real one. Robert rubbed his thumb along a bit of mortar where a builder had not smoothed it 2 generations ago, found comfort in the roughness. "You were with the old king," he said, "and you are with me." "I am with the crown," Baratheon said, which was what he must say and what he believed. Robert had counted on that. If a king were to be wrong for many years, and then to wake one morning and discover he had been wrong, what counsel would you give him before he went out to try to set himself right? Baratheon did not pretend not to understand. He did not rush to answer either. I would tell him to be suspicious of the rightness he had discovered in a single morning. I would tell him that men who have been wrong for many years have a tendency to seize on new certainties like a drowning man seizes a drifting plank and to drown anyway. Robert snorted a laugh. It brought him no ease and some regard for the man at his side. And if in that same morning the king discovered that the wrongness was a thing that endangered the realm? Then I would tell him not to pick up a hammer, Baratheon said, and swing it in the direction of the nearest noise. I would tell him to gather men to him who will not applaud when he does that, and to listen to those men first. I have one such man, Robert said. I will need more. You have one such man who speaks plainly and is not afraid to taste your anger, Baratheon said. You have one such man whose sword is oath-bound. You have one such man whose smile has teeth in it, each useful in his way. Robert spared a thought for Renly and Varys and Baelish, and then for a moment he let himself imagine Stannis walking through a door he had been summoned to for too long. It was not pleasant to imagine, but it was strong. Stannis had always been strong in the way iron is strong. You cannot bend it to a pleasing curve without heating it until it glows. Robert had not been patient with iron. He will come, Robert said aloud, to test the feel. He will come because I have called him twice, and he will be angry enough to be useful and too honorable to be dangerous. Anger and honor together make strange horses, Baratheon murmured, which was near to poetry for him. Robert nodded. He sent Baratheon away with nothing more said, which was enough. Then he did something he would never have thought to do a week ago. He went to the rookeries himself. The rookery kept a smell that had more to do with sea and droppings than with the crisp peaked feathers pressed down beneath a falconer's fingers. The maester there looked at him with fluttering hands and started to bow. But Robert had no patience for bowing here, among the tap-tap of beaks and the low rumble of a bird's thought. 3 letters, he said. And try not to share them with any soul in this castle who has not sworn his life to me. The maester fussed. Robert stared at him until fussing seemed imprudent. Then Robert dictated. He dictated to Dragonstone and to Storm's End, and to the distant islet off Shipbreaker Bay where Estermont sat like a stubborn old turtle. Why? Take a family on its back. He did not put treason in any of those letters. He wrote that he wanted his brother at his side, and that a great accounting must be made of ships and coin, and that he would play host to none until he had seen to the business of kingship, which had gone neglected not because the king was lazy but because the kingdom had grown too comfortable, and that must be corrected. He did not sign them with any flourishes. He put his name down with ink that sank into the page as if thirsty. When he left the rookery, he did not go to the council chamber or to his own rooms or to the queen. He climbed down through the castle's guts again to the yard where the practice archery butts stood like patient enemies. He took a bow. The wood settled in his grip like an old friend whose hand you had not held for a while. He drew. The joints in his shoulders complained. He exhaled and the weight left him, and the arrow struck exactly where he had looked. He did it again and again until a stable boy stopped pretending to carry something across the yard to see the king shoot and actually just watched. Robert shot until his arms trembled with that pleasant exhaustion that costs blood and gives back something like it. "Father," said a voice, "you look well. For this hour." It might have been a cutting comment. It was only a boy saying a thing to his father, the king in the tone boys sometimes have when they are pleased to have found their father outside of the throne and uncertain how to show it. Joffrey came out of the shadow, golden as a coin. He moved with the care taught him by men who had drilled him to move as if he were made of dignity. It sat on him like a cloak in high summer. His face had not yet grown into itself. He was all sharpness at the cheek and smoothness at the lip. He had Cersei's mouth and Cersei's eyes and Cersei's hair and Jaime's smile when he remembered to use it. "Take a bow," Robert said. He stood aside and handed the weapon not as if giving a gift but as if offering weight. The prince took it. He was careful. He drew, and the line of his arm was beautiful in the way lads' arms are before they become men's. The arrow went wide. "You flinched," Robert said. "It was the wind," Joffrey said. He set his jaw. "May I try again?" "Try until you find the part of your arm that does not lie to your own head," Robert said. It was a kindness. He had not meant it to be a kindness. Joffrey glanced at him as if someone had changed the rules of a game he knew how to win and win badly. He drew again and loosed, and the second arrow he put nearer than the first, and then he did a thing that forced Robert to unclench his teeth. He smiled at himself not in pleasure but in relief, as if a small balance had tilted the right way. The boy looked his age then, which he rarely did. The heart under Robert's ribs kicked him again with a hoof it had grown sometime in the last hours. "Enough," Robert said after a few more shots. "You'll grow into it." He reached out and let his hand land very gently on the crown of the boy's head and smoothed the bright hair down as if quieting a restless animal. For an instant Joffrey leaned into it. Then he remembered that boys of his rank do not lean into their father's hands in the yard where men can see, and he drew back into himself with a jerk as artless as a flinch, disguised as a straightening. "I will make you proud," he said quickly, as if that would cover what had happened and what had not. "You will make yourself better," Robert said. He sounded to his ear like someone else entirely. "The rest will follow." Joffrey stood a moment, then bowed at the waist and took himself off, dignity like a flag that had caught on something and could not be freed. Robert watched him go. He wondered whether he had just laid his hand lightly on the head of a boy who would not be king. He wondered how he would tell that boy anything that resembled the truth without tearing the world. There was no way. It would tear. He did not know whether he meant the world or himself. The day altered around him as days do when they are full and the man inside them has noticed the fullness. He ate without tasting. He spoke without hearing himself. He took 2 more men aside and told them nothing important and saw what they did with that nothing when they took it back to their fellows. He found Renly in a gallery with his laughing companions and dismissed them with a look he would not have known how to make last week. Renly matched it with an adult's look of his own and put his hands on the stone balustrade as if to say he could not shout with his brother in his own home. "What is it, then?" Renly said, without the courtesy of preamble. "I conjure kings and send them away again," Robert said. "I said no hunt. We will remind the court that we are not a procession of pigs to a trough." "That will do wonders for your temper," Renly said, trying for lightness and missing it. "And what else?" "You will look pretty and make the ladies laugh," Robert said, savager than he intended. He regretted it at once. "And you will listen with those clever ears and tell me what they tell you when they forget they are telling you because you have made them forget with your smile." Renly turned slowly to face him. "You are asking me to be useful. Stronger men than you have failed in that request." "I ask you," Robert said, blunt as wood, "to be my brother." He did not know he was going to say it until he had said it. He saw it land in Renly and he forgave himself everything that had led to this one good thing. Renly's face altered as if a cloud had moved off him and the sun had struck and he had not been ready to be warmed. "That," he said, "always, even when you make it impossible." "Good." Robert gripped Renly's shoulder, felt honest muscle there under all the silk. "There is rot in the floorboards of this palace. I don't mean the stone. I mean the men. If a storm comes, and storms always come, you will not leave me standing on those boards alone." "You will not stand on them at all," Renly said, with a kind of fierce softness. "We will take a step sideways, to somewhere stone is under us." Robert laughed, one short bark. "Stone is where you put your feet. I know that now." He left his brother with a clout and another command to listen. In the afternoon, Varys came to him as if arriving by chance, a scented cloud of concern with an eye like a bird's behind it. "Your grace seems grave," he murmured, hands folded. "Grave is better than groaning, as any maester will tell you. But grave makes the young men in the yard look to their belts and their pleasures, and it gives the old men indigestions. Perhaps I could be of service." "You are always of service," Robert said, letting the words arrange themselves without committing himself to them. "I or my table can always find some place for you to put your clever hands." Varys dipped his head, smiling as if he had been praised, which he had, and took no insult from the form of the praise, which he should have. "Then perhaps I will say that there has been a turning in the river. We cannot see what it has cleared away yet. We can only feel the drag of branches against the hull." "You speak in pleasing riddles," Robert said. "Say your piece like a man." "I have always despaired of being a man," Varys said. "But I will do what I can to satisfy you. There is a whisper that your wife is tired of waiting for you to fall from your horse while hunting and has taken up new hobbies." Robert kept his face the same as a stone face on a church with a chipped nose. "She has had a number. They never please her for long. This one might," Varys said, and lifted a finger with a little thoughtful arc of his wrist. "It is the old hobby of the Lannisters, the one they perfected when they were mining for gold. They dig everywhere. They dig here. If your grace were to place his hand upon the ground, he would feel the tremor." Robert thought of the city watch and of the men who paid them. He thought of the coins that moved like fish just under the surface of the river. He thought of the way Jaime Lannister could make men love him in a yard simply by being dangerous and beautiful. He thought of his own lack of beauty and of his old danger, dulled. He was not a fool. He was only a man who had pretended to be a fool because it served him to be thought one. "I will feel the tremor," he said. "I will not leap up and declare there is an earthquake because a glass quivered. Do you understand me?" "Perfectly," Varys said, bowing. "It is more becoming to declare the house sound, and to ensure one's hat does not rattle." "Go," Robert said, and with a flicker of humor Varys went. Evening came with the sea's wind turning, as it always did, out of the south, heavy with weed and with rumor. A raven went north, a raven went east, a raven went to a stubborn old turtle of an island. Somewhere a boy in a forge fought the day's heat for a last hour and then gave up and slept under the table like a dog, exhausted, honest. Somewhere a golden boy put his head down on a pillow that would not trouble him with truths and dreamed something better than himself. Robert did not drink. There was wine and there was wine, and there were men who wheedled and jested and wanted him to be what they wanted, and he did not drink. He went to bed after the candles guttered and the windows had turned to black coins. He lay there like a man listening for a thief. When sleep came, it came like a man with a hood he did not fight. In the morning he went to the queen. He did it as a king should do it. He did not barge in. He did not send for her like a jailer. He sent a polite message, and he stood in his own hall a moment looking at the stag on gold that was the emblem for which he had killed. And then he walked down a corridor and up another, and the guard at her door straightened as if he had been playing at slouching and now remembered he was at work. Robert went in. Her chamber was a room that had learned to be quiet when the queen wished it to be. She was at the window with a comb in her hair. She was looking at the city as if it were a jewel she had set down and was not sure she wished to wear. She turned when he entered. The comb stilled. "Husband," she said. It was the actual word and not a sneer made of the word. Some days she could do that. "How early you come to me. I had thought to send to you once I was made presentable." Her eye spoke volumes about the degree to which she judged herself presentable already. He crossed to a table and set down the new thing in his hand. It was not the book. It was something else. A small clay stag he had found on that same table in his room where the book had lain. He did not know where it had come from. Perhaps some page had left it without thinking. Perhaps it had been a gift for one of the children, abandoned. It had been rough-made and charming in its lack of proportion. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "A stag," she said, not in the mood for games. "A child's toy. The children of this house," he said, and he heard the stone in his voice weathering as he spoke. "Were given a stag made of clay. It will break if thrown. It would withstand only the gentler tumblings." He picked it up and held it gently. "Clay breaks. I did not throw you," she said, soft and vicious. "I gave you sons." He looked at her, and the next words came like stones falling. "You did not give me sons." He had thought about the naming of the thing. He had thought perhaps he would ask more questions and pretend to be in the asking stage. He had thought he would be careful and it would save him. Carefulness is a skill, and he had not acquired it in time. She did not move. To her credit, she did not look to the door where the ache lived. She looked at him. "Say that again," she said. Each word like silk runs slowly over a blade. "You did not give me sons," he said. "You gave me children. They are yours, not mine." "What children would they be?" she said, and now the silk had gone and left steel. "If not yours." He leaned his knuckles on the table, felt the drag of wood under them. He wanted to lift the table, throw it into the window, and shout so the whole city could hear. He wanted to walk around the table and take her face in his hands and shake her as if she were a fruit tree and he a hungry, stupid boy. He did neither. "They are Lannisters," he said. "They are lions with stag cloaks. And you." "Finish it," she said. Her eyes were lit now from some forge where she had learned to make herself into a weapon against him. "You," he said with terrible patience, "have made me a fool before this court for a decade, and you have made this realm a place where it will be torn when I—" He could not bring himself to say die. "When I am not king. You have put a lion in a stag's skin and you have called it safety." "Safety," she said, and laughed once only, a short bark. And she moved for the first time, just her hand, setting down the comb like a woman setting down some small feminine thing before grasping a spear. "Safety? You speak to me of safety, who came to your bed like a girl given to a much older man who stank of wine, who spoke the name of another when he put his hands upon my hair. She shook her head once without dignity. Some of the careful coils loosened and made her furious. "Safety," she said again, quieter. "Oh, Robert, my safety was never of interest to anyone. Not my father's, not yours. Your safety was of interest to me," he said. He might as well have said the sun was of interest to trees. "If it had not been, you would not be standing here now. You would be in a tower in the rock, and your gold would be mine in truth." She smiled with her mouth only. "My gold was yours in truth the day I married you. You spent it. You always spent everything put into your hands. Even the loyalty of men." He swallowed. He scraped his throat. "You will not tell a soul that we have spoken," he said. "You will not run to your brother. You will not take this to your father. I know you well enough to know that you already have. That you have written what you needed to. That the city has been swimming in your gold while I was drunk." He straightened. "I am not drunk today." "No," she said, eyes like chips of sea in winter. "No. Today you are a king again. How tiresome for all of us." "You will not leave this keep without my word," Robert said. "You will not send a raven unless it flies to a place I name. You will not conspire with your brother under my roof. If you disobey me, I will put you in a chamber so high and so narrow that you will forget what it is to turn around without brushing both walls. You would lock the queen of the 7 kingdoms like some girl caught with a boy in a herrick," she said. "You will do it, and you will be applauded by boys who tell one another that we are the same as they are." "I will do it," he said, "and I will be applauded by no one." He felt hollowed by truth. Something in his voice must have carried that, because she looked at him with a small surprise, as if she had not expected to find whatever that was still in him. "For the sake of the realm, for the sake of your children." She flinched. "You say they are not mine," she said. "Yet you speak of the sake of my children." "I do not make a habit," Robert said, very tired, "of killing children. It is one of the few virtues I have kept." He let the clay stag on the table and straightened, and he let the sadness that had been crouching in him jump to his face for a moment. "Do not give me cause." She did not nod. She did not speak. She turned her face away, and he saw how shallow the hair was over her temple, where time was pressing already with a thumb. He left without a bow and without waiting for the words she would call after him if she could not bear to let him go without the last word. She did not call. Outside her chamber, Jaime Lannister was not leaning at ease, which meant he had been leaning a breath before. He unbent himself into a posture that made him a model for boys to copy without ever reaching. His eyes took in Robert's face and made an expression a man might make if he were noticing a crack in a wall and calculating when it would widen enough to be of interest. "My king," he said. "My knight," Robert said. He let the words go past Jaime's ear and into the sunlit corridor where they fell and died. "Tell your men to be careful with their tongues. The king has a mind to be obeyed today." "Today," Jaime said, and his smile was like the edge of a cup. "And tomorrow?" "We shall see if tomorrow comes," Robert said, and left him there to think about how that could be made otherwise. In the days that followed, the castle changed the way a city changes when it smells rain. Sentries stood at posts they had neglected. The sounds of the yard altered by a small degree that meant the men there thought something worth not talking about was about to happen. The kitchens cooked simpler dishes, because the master of his own mouth had sent down word that heavy sauces were for heavy men, and for now this would be a palace of clear soups and of bread. The prince kept closer to his tutors for a day, then farther from them, as boys do when they are told there is something serious happening and neglect seriousness out of youth and fear in equal proportion. The princess watched with half her mother's watchfulness and half her father's impatience. The small boy, Tommen, cried when his cur was taken from him because someone had decided it prudent to take all animals from the children's chambers until the palace remembered what animals are loyal to. Robert walked. He wrote nothing further after those first letters. He refused 2 suppers and accepted 3 audiences and then closed his doors. Eddard Stark came and went. He did not move as men move when they are afraid to betray that they are thinking. He moved as a tree moves when the wind churns the air round it. Varys went like a scented rumor, and Baelish went like a figure in a story who will not be pinned down to act in any way but his own small cleverness. Barristan Selmy was everywhere. There was a door between this chamber and that. Renly drifted and anchored, his smile doing work and his eyes doing more. The queen did not leave her rooms except to attend the queen's September. The lion with the white cloak, who had murdered a king a lifetime ago and had sworn to protect this one, did not smile as much as he had the week before. On the third day, the raven came from Dragonstone. He came storm-marked, a feather stuck to the damp of the message. The writing inside was as tight as a man who refuses to give away more than the fact that he is writing at all. "I obey," it said. That was all the important bit said. There were words about tides and about the provisioning of ships. Stannis had always believed he could make any insult into a logistical problem by sheer will. Robert read it and felt anger and relief and something like love. On the fourth day, a man of the City Watch who had served under a captain from the Stormlands came to the small council chamber to speak with the king at an hour. Men do not go to speak to kings unless something has slipped off a shelf and broken. He stood on the threshold and swallowed. He was young in the way men are who have been cut once and recovered. He looked stubborn and frightened. Baelish toyed with a ring and looked delighted by anything that made someone else swallow. Varys looked sorrowful. Pycelle had an ailment and coughed as if to hurry the man along with mortality. "Speak," Robert said, not impatient. "My lord," the watchman said. "Your grace, there are men with lion brooches handing out small coins to men in my street and telling them who feeds them." "Who feeds you?" Robert asked. The watchman drew himself up in a way that made his blue cloak sit better on his shoulders. "My king," he said, and then added as if compelled by a need to fill the air with enough respect to hold the ceiling up, "Your grace." Robert nodded. "Where?" The man told him. "Who?" The man told him the names he knew. He did not reach for the names he did not. He was a good watchman. Robert dismissed him and then turned to his counsel and felt a kind of clarity fall through him like a cold draft down a stairwell. "Renly," he said without looking to see if his brother had returned to the table from the business of smiling elsewhere. "Find which captain commands men who were reared in the Stormlands and the Reach. If he is not a fool, promote him. If he is, find one who is not and promote him twice." "It is irregular," Baelish said amiably. "I am in a mood for irregularities," Robert said. "Varys, send word to every gate captain that entrance to the city is closed for 1 night and 3 for the next fortnight, and that those who would enter on those nights will stand in lines and be looked in the face before they come through. Tell them we seek smugglers. It is not untrue." "Smuggling what?" Varys asked, eyes bright and pitying. "Rumor," Robert said. "Gold." He put both hands on the table and felt the old wood. Pycelle hemmed and hawed until he was given leave to speak and delivered a sermon on the illusions of control and the ugliness of siege, then glided into a recommendation for more poppy for restless nights. Robert thanked him as one thanks a well-meaning uncle and said no. That night he did not sleep. He sat in the dark of his chamber with the windows thrown open because he liked the heat's honesty. He held the clay stag and he did not break it. He thought of his father's face, which he barely remembered, and of his mother's, which he did not remember at all, and of Jon Arryn's, who had been the figure that had stood between boy and man. He thought of what it means when men take oaths to a crown, whether they put their word into the gold or to the head beneath it. He thought of a boy in a forge and a boy on an archery range and a girl with her mother's mouth and his hands clenching until his nails hurt his palms, and he thought better to hurt where no one could see than where they must. Morning came like a blade drawn slow from a sheath. He bathed in a basin full of water as hot as they could fetch and let himself be scrubbed like a soldier. A man's hands on him, brisk. He dressed like a king. He went to the Hall of Nine and sat beneath banners that were his father's before they were his, and he let the petitioners come. He heard the woman with the complaint about her son pressed into service by a press gang. He heard the merchant whose partner had cheated him and who wanted the king to be a god. He heard the knight who had nowhere to go because his liege was dead, and the men who had killed him had been saved by a lord's word over theirs. He gave judgments he trusted, and some he did not trust but saw no better. His mouth grew dry. He drank watered wine. He felt the room listening. When Cersei came into the Hall of Nine, she came with Joffrey, and with the girl Sansa Stark, who watched the world as if the world would love her if given the chance. Guards came too, and the faithful with white cloaks came, and men whose faces had not yet settled into the faces they would be at 30 and at 50. She came to the foot of the steps, and she did not climb them because she never had. Jaime Lannister stood 6 paces away and looked as if he were thinking of something else entirely and would be able to think of that thing and of killing a man at the same time, as he was famous for doing 2 things at once with ease. "My lord," Cersei said up to him, and the murmuring of the hall changed. "A queen comes before her king to ask him a favor." "You may ask," he said, and felt his voice be surprisingly gentle. He had thought it would be iron. She inclined her head with every manner of courtesy, and her eyes told him everything about war. "The Northmen have their gods' woods," she said. "The Storm Lords have their tempests. The Lannisters have our gold, which makes our gods where we need them. My son is to wed the Stark girl. It would be proper for the girl to be seen to attend to the gods of the south as well as to those of the north. There are prayers he might attend with her. It would please me if you commanded the prince to attend them in the sept, publicly." Robed septons nodded their veiled heads at the manner of gods that receives this petition. There were men in the hall who thought in terms of precedence. He could see their lips moving as they counted up the meaning of public prayers and of commanded princes and of girls who are asked to be seen doing pious things. He felt the trap open in front of him, and the name of it was stagecraft and not treason. He had been caught in worse snares. He was wary enough now to lift a foot and test the spring. "The prince will be seen where he should be seen," Robert said, and then he moved the piece with calm, clean fingers. "He will attend the training yard today, and he will show the men he trains with that he can hear instruction as well as give it. When he has done that, he will go to the sept and stand with the Stark girl at her prayers. He will be seen then, and the day after that, he will go to the city watch and stand with the men there while they pass in review for their captains, and he will compliment those who have done their duty. He will be seen then as well." A ripple, a small thing. He pushed against the boards in his mind and found them solid. Cersei did not show satisfaction, which meant she was. She was good at understanding when she had been given part of what she wanted because she had wanted to be given all of it and had prepared to take none. Jaime looked bored. The girl Sansa looked as if someone had described to her a song she had not heard and had told her it was about her. Joffrey looked up at his father with something like resentment and something like hunger and something like confusion. Robert looked down at him and imagined his head made of clay that might be shaped and realized he had neither the time nor the art in his hands to make anything worth the making. He did not despair. He felt something else. He recognized it after a long moment. He felt pity. After the hall, after the wife and the boy and the business of rule, he went back to the small room off his own where the book sat. He opened it. He looked at the lines. He closed it again. He had seen all the lines he needed. He sat and for the first time in years he prayed. He did not pray to be forgiven. He had done too much and asked too little for forgiveness to be his habit. He prayed instead for pieces to move the way they should when pushed with the right pressure. He prayed for Stannis to come in gruff and intractable and right, for Renly to be bright and slippery and loyal, for the lion to keep its claws inside its velvet long enough for him to do what he must, for the boy in the forge to keep his back straight, for the boy in the yard to learn to hear again and not take it as a wound. When he rose, something in him that had been hunching had uncurled by a thumb's width. He put his hand on the book again, could not help it, and then he went to where the white cloaks were and asked for their Lord Commander. "Ser Baratheon," he said when the old knight stood before him. "I wish to remember what it is to have around me men who do not love another house more than mine." Baratheon bowed. "It is a rare thing to have men who love nothing more than duty." "I will have to try," Robert said, not smiling. "Send word quietly to the Trident's men who never swore to the lion, to the Reach men who keep their first oath to the Tyrells and their second to the crown, to those in the city who wear no white cloak but who would die because they were told to. Tell them to stand ready, and tell them to keep their mouths shut around their wives." Baratheon looked at him for a heartbeat too long, which was how a man like him smiled. "Yes, your grace," he said. Even as he made these bulletins of loyalty out of breath and handshakes and looks, the other side moved. Cersei sent her women to other women. Jaime walked the yard and made the boys enjoy him as boys will enjoy a remarkable man who is kind to them in the half-everlasting hours of training they dread. Littlefinger arranged a dinner. Varys pricked small bladders of speculation here and there like a physician letting out poison so a man feels suddenly clean and is not. The Lannister men in city and castle learned which nights their purses would be heavy and which light. A lord arrived from the west with too many hats and too great a love of red. It would have been a handsome dance to admire from a balcony. He was not on a balcony. The days that lay before him unfurled. On one of them, he would speak words that could not be unsaid. On another of them, steel would make its old plain argument on plain stone. There would be blood. He did not feel especially drawn to blood, not as he had in youth for the delight of the force of it, but he did not flinch from it either. He knew the cost of doing nothing because he had paid it so long he had forgotten he was paying. He went to the yard again and shot until he could not, and then had a boy carry the bow not because he could not carry it but because he wanted the boy to do a king's small bidding without complaint. He went to the kitchens and took a heel of bread from a table, and the cook pretended dismay and he pretended to be shamed. He went to the walls at midnight and stood with a man who had not seen his home in 2 years because he was saving to send coin to his wife. He went to his bed and did not go to the queen and remembered that there were times he had gone to the queen because that was easier. On the 7th morning, when the gulls cried like scolds and the harbor was greasy with the courtesy of too many ships crowding it, a horn announced a longboat from Dragonstone. By the time the beached longboat had left a wet mouth on the pebbled shore beneath the king's gate, Robert was already in a cloak so plain no one would mark him as king except those who always knew the king no matter what he wore. He took Baratheon and no one else and walked down to meet his brother. Stannis came up the strand with his jaw locked as if to keep his teeth from accusing. He did not look back at the boat as if to make sure it remained where it was put. He knew men did as they were told when he was near. He saw Robert and did not smile. He did not do the things Renly would do. He did not make himself pleasant. He came like a winter that has been announced and ignored and arrives anyway. "Brother," Robert said. Stannis stopped at a distance that made Robert think of the old days standing on the cliff at Storm's End shouting into wind too strong to hear any answer. "Your Grace," Stannis said, "come up into the wind and we'll pretend we are boys again." "We were not," Stannis said, "but he came." "You have a problem." "I have several," Robert said. "Sit with me and we will go through them. It will take all day and part of the night and you will wish for a table to pound." He felt something like joy, bleak and bright, rise in him. "I have done a thing I have not done in many years," he said. "What is that, then?" Stannis said suspiciously. "I have decided to place a certain value on truth," Robert said. He took his brother by the forearm and felt the iron there. "And if that kills me, it will at least be honest work." Stannis looked at him for a long moment and then nodded once as if a clock had struck the hour he had been counting toward. "Good," he said. "Then we will start with the truth no one will speak aloud." Robert nodded. He tasted the salt on the air. He heard the city breathing. He felt his heart, that treacherous thing, kick him once with a hoof and then settle. He thought of a boy with a hammer and a boy with a bow and a woman with a comb and a man in white whose sword had never once forgotten who it was for, even when the man had. He imagined the table in the small council chamber. He imagined his own hands upon it. He imagined a crown that had lain at the edge of his bed, and for the first time in a long time, he did not despise it. "Come," he said to his brother again. And this time the word was not an invitation but a summons to battle against something you do not shout at to frighten away. It was just a thing you must bend or break. They went up into the city together with Baratheon at a measured pace a little behind and to one side, and the people saw them and shouted because people do not know the particulars of storms and simply love the drama of clouds. Women leaned from windows to see whether this was a day to name later and tell their children about. The men in the watch stood straighter because men will sometimes make themselves into the thing they wish to be if the king walks past them looking as if he is the man for whom they had sworn oaths. On a balcony, A lion watched, and a lion's sister watched, and a small girl in northern cloth watched, and a young prince did not come to the rail because he had been told he must keep his hours of tutelage or be sorry. The book lay on a table in the king's chamber, its pages like thin bone waiting for fingers to lift and turn them. No one turned them. For the moment, in that quiet room, it did not matter what lines had been written in old ink. The living lines were walking up from the shore to the Red Keep, and their ink would be blood or would not be blood depending on the next word spoken, and the next and the next. The city held its breath. So did the sea. So did the stag whose clay body had not yet been thrown against a wall and shattered, and which lay in a king's big hand now as he climbed. The little thing warmed by the heat of that hand as if such warmth could make anything resilient that was not. When they reached the gate, Stannis took in the height of it with a disapproving sniff. "Ruinous," he said to the stone. "Every arch costs more than the one before it." Robert laughed, a thick sound that contained relief and dread and an odd love for everything he had been in the habit of scowling at. "There you are," he said. "It would not be a council without you complaining about the price of the chairs." "Someone must," Stannis said. "Someone will," Robert answered. "Comain." He looked up, not at the banners, not at the ornament, but at the sky. The gulls circled. The air tasted of iron. The first word had been said. The second would be said soon. Between the two words was the place where a kingdom either steadies itself or begins to fall. He put his hand in the small of his back as if to ease a pain and felt the clay stag there where he had tucked it for luck like a boy. He felt ridiculous and formidable at once. He went forward. He would not put everything down all at once. He would be patient as long as he could. He would make the cut where it could be stitched after, and if it scarred, men would live with the scar and call it a lesson. He had never been good with lessons. He could learn this one if he cared enough to be capable of shame. He did. He made himself a promise with the silent ferocity of oaths that men do not speak aloud to others because they are speaking them loudly to themselves. There would be time or there would not. There would be blood or there would not. There would be boys who came through the still boys or less than that or more. The wind tugged at his cloak. The city breathed and waited. The king walked with his brother beside him and his knight at his back. And the truth, wide and dangerous and simple, walked at his side now too with a stride that never once hurt. Read and never once slowed.